Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 45, which is called Defection. And overall, I'd say this was a pretty good chapter. I definitely overall enjoyed it. It maybe didn't deliver on as much as I wanted it to, because last week I think very much teased the idea, and there was a lot of hype leading into this chapter that this would finally be the chapter where we get that big information dump about what is the karma mark, all this sort of important information on the Otsutsukis, because Amado is going to tell us everything that he knows. And he does, and he doesn't. Most of the information we get here is ultimately information that we already knew before, but I am glad that they recapped it in a fairly sort of quick way, because the whole Otsutsuki, chakra fruit, divine tree, 10-tail stuff is some of the more complicated like lore dynamics in Naruto, so I think it was nice to recap that for I think everyone, so we're on the same page. That probably is complicated enough where it's okay to explain that a couple of times in the franchise, just because it is a pretty complicated dynamic. Even given the explanation here, I think there's still a lot of nuances that they sort of left out or were a little bit vague about, as I'll get into as I discuss the chapter. But of course, I think if there's any frustration with this chapter, it was probably just the fact that, oh, Sasuke finally gets us on track. What is the karma mark? Like, this is what it is, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, you're good. I'm finally going to tell you about the karma mark. Buzz, something else goes on. Thankfully, what we're distracted by is actually something we're also invested in, which is the Jigen Kashin Koji fight / dialogue sequence, which happens. So it's kind of like, okay, I really want to know about the karma mark, but okay, you're finally getting around to doing the Kashin Koji Jigen fight. That's good. Hopefully next chapter can maybe deliver on both the explanation we've finally been waiting for and the big fight that we've been waiting a while for as well. So yeah, overall, very good chapter, just, maybe a little overhyped, but we'll get into it. I think this chapter is best sort of explored and discussed as we go through it sort of page by page. So where we start off here is with, of course, the situation, the standoff we found ourselves in at the end of last chapter, which is obviously Amado is using Shikadai as sort of leverage to kind of ensure his defection, to get a conversation with Shikamaru and Naruto. It has the bomb strapped to Shikadai's neck, and they know about this, and like there's no way we can trust him. What are we going to do? He wants to defect, and Boruto, who's obviously looking at this on the kind of is seeing this happen, is like, what does he mean by defect? And so Sumire explains to us what defection means. She says, it's like when someone can't stay in their land or group for any longer for some reason, so they seek protection from another land and escape to there. I think this guy ran away from Kara. It looks like he wants asylum in Konoha. Maybe his life is at stake. And so we get the reaction from Kawaki. Amado's betrayed Kara? I don't get it. What's going on? So he is very shocked by this. He didn't see this coming at all, Kawaki. So that's quite interesting. And ultimately, I suppose defection and explaining it was probably something they needed to do. They might have saw some of the reaction from a lot of fans to the chapter last time and be like, yeah, there was actually a surprising amount of people asking, what does the term defection means? I suppose ultimately it is a somewhat specialized term. Not everyone would know it, so it's fair enough to explain it here, even though I think a good amount of people knew what it meant. But anyway, that's the situation we have here. So we cut over to Naruto, who takes command of this situation, because usually I suppose Shikamaru would be the one to more deal with these negotiations, but it's his son at stake here. And I'd like to see Naruto sort of standing his ground here, being a little bit harsh. He knows he has to give some leeway to Amado here, because he has sort of control of the situation. But the situation is here, he's coming here, his life is at risk, and Naruto knows that he wants to protect his life. So there's that angle that they both have of course, Amado has control of Shikadai, but Naruto basically has control of what happens to Amado's life. So they're both sort of willing to give in to each other just a little bit. So it's a pretty good standoff. And we just kind of cut away from that with everyone on edge about what decision will be made. And so we cut over to this interesting scene here. We cut to Code, one of the inner members of Kara, and of course we found out a chapter or two ago that he was the one guarding the Ten Tails area that Sasuke visited a bunch of chapters ago. And so he contacts in with Jigen, who basically just, the report is no problems here. Code is just bored, so that's sort of part of his personality. He wants to do some more sort of exciting stuff, but it's a pretty boring job just looking after this creature which basically can't move. And he says, I don't know how, but Konoha is aware of that place, so don't let your guard down. And Code asks about Boro, and this is where Jigen finds out that not yet. It seems that something has happened. Perhaps Sasuke Uchiha has made an appearance. You stay there and keep watch. So Jigen's beginning to suspect something might have happened with Boro, which is when Kashin Koji walks in to confront Jigen. Long time no see, what of your mission? It's still in progress even as we speak. And so we cut away from this at this point, but with the idea of sit, give me your report. So Kashin Koji is going into this trying to play it cool, okay, how much does Jigen actually know? Act like he's still on your side and then take him by surprise while he's kind of weakened, still recovering from the battle. Let's see how this plays out. But anyway, we cut back and this time we have Amado in the Hokage, it's actually not the Hokage office, it's in the interview room. He asked for a smoke, of course, because he's a smoker. And, they're like, just be grateful that we even let you sit down here, basically. And we established just the situation that's going on here. He tries to exert his dominance by saying, I still have control over Shikadai's head, basically. Because, of course, it's he basically has a psychic connection. It's like a digital signal he can just send to make it happen. So Shikadai is still at risk. I like the moment here of emotion from Shikamaru. He really snaps at the mention of so casually mentioning the potential death of his son. Shikamaru slams him up against the wall. And Naruto actually says, stand down, Shikamaru. That's not going to accomplish anything. This isn't like you. And he does eventually calm down, but, basically says, hurry and get to the point. And Naruto pretty much agrees with it as well. My patient won't last forever either. Talk. So, we get caught up, we see that outside it's Katasuke, Kawaki, Boruto, and Sumire are watching this through the glass. And Kawaki says, Amado is the head of the Kara Research and Development Division. It wouldn't be exaggerating to say that he knows everything about Kara. Jigen has never granted him leave to go out, so him just being here is an act of treason that will incur Jigen's wrath. I bet Amado has come prepared to die. That's how I see it. So that's a nice thing to have because it is Kawaki's view on the situation of in his view, he's never seen Amado leave at all. So the fact that he's even outside of the lair is a signal that something's gone wrong, that this is the guy who knows the most. Jigen would never let him leave or out of his sight. So the fact that he's out means he's prepared to die, and that is a sort of sign that you should trust him to a certain degree, that this is not their sleeper agent guy or anything like that. This is a notable thing here. So Katasuke reacts oh, he's the one who knows all about your body, and again we get confirmed, not just me, all of Kara's cyborgs are his handiwork. So this guy is the true scientific genius, and Katasuke would love to have him exert his skills at the laboratory and hopefully help Kawaki, of course, because we need to help Kawaki with what's going on. We know he's kind of suffering a bit from the last chapter or two, and yeah, Kawaki's still what are you plotting? He feels there's still something going on here. So, then we just get a quick back and forth about just, more negotiation about what's going on here, of just tell us the story first and then we'll determine whether or not we will allow you to defect. Basically, will we supply you protection to, keep you alive here against your former group coming after you. So ultimately, Naruto says, I will give you my word as Hokage, and he ultimately agrees. So he is just about to launch into the explanation here as we cut back over to Jigen and Kawaki. Jigen and Kashin Koji. So Jigen says, I don't see Kawaki with you. It's unheard of you to return empty-handed. And Kashin Koji just points out that, I chose to observe from a distance because, I wasn't powerful enough to just take on everyone in Konoha by myself. And then he basically admits, I was shocked to see you just suddenly appear out of nowhere to basically try and get Kawaki. You tasked me with retrieving Kawaki, however you hid that you could have extracted him yourself at any point. I'd like to hear from you why. And so this is where we get to the core of this, that Jigen has been suspecting something from the start. So he goes back to that. All of this situation has started from the airship crash, which obviously was the sort of where we found Kawaki, basically, the vessel. And he says, first of all, that was no accident. Someone attacked the airship in transit and deliberately caused it to crash, feigning an accident. Kashin Koji tries to deny it. That's news to me. Why did you hear such a thing? Don't play dumb. This is a prime opportunity for us to drop all pretenses and talk. Kashin Koji. As we see that the one of his summoning frogs is there, staring at the conversation happening here. And obviously, suspicion is now on Kashin Koji that he is being suspected of being the one to cause the airship to crash, which makes complete sense that something like that happened. Because, yeah, that was very unexplained. Like, for such a powerful organization, yeah, how did their plan suddenly go awry just because of an airship crash? Because it wasn't. It was a sabotage. But anyway, here we launch back with the Amado side of the story into the explanation. So, first up, what he says, Jigen is an Otsutsuki, or rather, he became an Otsutsuki. He originally was an ordinary human just like us. And okay, ultimately, I would say most people who have read the Boruto manga would know that at this point. They made that, I think, clear enough with the idea that Jigen also has that power that when he goes into like the next stage of Karma Mark, that's when the horn comes out, and he's not just a like default Otsutsuki. He has the Karma Mark, and so that's a power. But it does sort of establish to us that the Karma Mark, I suppose the aim of it is ultimately to sort of like turn someone into an Otsutsuki. But again, they don't fully explain the Karma Mark at the end. They still leave that tease for what's to come. So, let me start by explaining exactly who and what the Otsutsuki are. They're invaders from another planet. To put it plainly, they are alien parasites. So it is interesting to see them referred to in that way, and that actually makes a lot of sense. In that, yeah, like when the whole divine tree thing is sucking energy out of planets, it's taking it from other species and other planets and stuff like that. It's, you know, using their own, you know, methods to take from other people. And even to a degree, the Karma Mark is basically the same idea. Like, literally, when they're in that Karma Mark form, they are very literally a parasite to a degree, sponging off the person that they're inside, that the Karma Mark is on. So that's actually, I like that terminology of referring to them as parasites. They have one goal, to devour the life of a planet. That's the only reason why they come, and then leave for another planet. So Naruto asks, what do you mean by devour life on a planet? As in, how do they do it? And he says, via endlessly annoying gardening. They plant a divine tree in the ground, an enormously large tree. Its roots grow deeply, reaching every corner of the planet, just like mold in your bathroom. And it sucks the chakra from all life living on that planet. I'll stop here for a second in the sense that, like, that could have been worded a little bit better, in the sense that, as far as we are aware, at least in terms of like Naruto planet, like Earth or whatever you want to call it, chakra only came into this planet after the divine tree sprouted. In that humans have chakra because Kaguya gave birth to Hagoromo, who then spread chakra to people like post the dead, like the defeat of like the two brothers of their mother, and that's how chakra spread around and became as prevalent as it is now. That's why the Sage of Six Paths and to a degree Kaguya are considered the sort of like like parents of chakra for humanity. So how is it that a thing that the divine tree sucks chakra out of people when it itself is like the origin of chakra on like Earth to a degree? Now, I think this may just be the idea of nature energy versus chakra, and the idea that they're both an energy source, basically chakra, but they are technically different. In that, like, okay, if it's just that it sucks up nature energy and then creates the chakra food, which then creates the idea of what actual chakra is. Because again, when Naruto was learning Sage mode, the idea was that your actual chakra and then like Sage chakra or nature energy is different, and you have to mesh them together properly. So there are two forms of energy. So I think they left out a little bit of the technical detail there that feels contradictory just in the way it's written, when, obviously in the case of the story that we know so far, it actually happened like the other way around, like that chakra only came once the tree grew. So it just kind of begs that question of like, is there something about chakra that we maybe don't know, or whatever, or what? Are they going to do something different? But anyway, we'll move on. We'll maybe come back to that point. So, sucks all the chakra from all life. What happens to us? Everyone will die naturally. It's like a giant mosquito sucking out all the blood in your body. All life will end without a single exception. So why would they do such a thing? And he says, because of what happens next. Once the divine tree is finished absorbing everything, it will bear a large fruit. Sasuke says, the chakra fruit. That's right, the chakra fruit are lumps of tremendous energy and genetic information. I think the fact that it specifically says that is brand new information. I don't think we knew that it necessarily had genetic information inside of it. Otsutsuki continuously update themselves by eating them. That's how their species evolves. I think that's new. The idea of like they eat the chakra fruit and gain energy and gain power, we knew about before. But now it's the idea that they actually sort of gain the sort of genetic information of the people of that species, because of course it makes sense. If they suck energy out of the people to form the fruit, then they gain the kind of positive aspects of whatever species they kind of sucked it out of. So that's how the Otsutsuki constantly grow and evolve, is by doing this on multiple different planets. And so they gain the benefits of a bunch of different species, plus they continuously have more and more sort of energy-based powers in the way that they have their abilities and so on, as we've seen in their fights. But anyway, so this is when Amado asks, Sasuke, you've been there to that place, referring to where the Ten Tails is. No need to play dumb. You ought to have learned its coordinates from the airship's data. And he basically says, I planted it there for you, in a way that would be easy for you to find. I wanted you to know about him ahead of time. This is when Sasuke remembers that vision of an Otsutsuki that he saw, and he specifically says, that Otsutsuki, the shape of the horn is similar, but that wasn't Jigen. So who is he? And Amado kind of gets in the way and says, hold up, there's a proper sequence to this. Since it's a complicated story, let's take it step by step. If you did go there, you should have seen that Jigen possesses a Ten Tails. And so, of course, Naruto has a reaction to this. He knows about the Ten Tails. It's a different specimen than the one you battled. Unfortunately, I don't know where this one came from, but Otsutsuki always utilize a Ten Tails when they assault a planet. For it is Ten Tails that becomes the divine tree. Ten Tails is the seedling. First they plant the Ten Tails in the ground, and eventually it bears chakra fruit. It grows into the divine tree, consumes the planet, and eventually it bears chakra fruit. This is also a point at which I want to stop here and just like get the details of this down correctly. In that, what they don't say in all of this is, of course, that the Ten Tails that we know of only becomes the Ten Tails because Kaguya merges with the divine tree. So either they're saying that the tree that grew in the first place already had an Otsutsuki merged with it, or that that he just doesn't know a certain part of the information here, especially when they say that they always utilize a Ten Tails when they assault a planet. That would have to mean that they basically would always have to merge one of their people with the tree to make it happen. I don't know exactly how this works, in the sense of like, does this mean that there's always sort of like a sacrificial Otsutsuki, that one is basically part of the tree to allow it to happen, and then one is just there to sort of collect the chakra fruit once it grows, or what? I think that's the one missing point in all of this, is that like, wait, so is this information telling us that there's no chakra tree without an Otsutsuki part of it, because fundamentally a Ten Tails is always what is planted? But that seems to sort of contradict the whole Ten Tails Kaguya thing, because again, like I said, she only becomes the Ten Tails when she merges with the tree, which sets up the entire plot point of like the end of Naruto, when, you know, the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, the power of a Ten Tails within someone's body, Madara at that point in time is taken over by Black Zetsu, and then Kaguya comes back. So again, I think the details are a little bit like, it feels like they've it's like this like loop of like they haven't fully like closed it yet, of like there's either some part of it missing, or else the whole Kaguya story is a very specific example where they didn't do it in the exact right way. Again, this is where it's like weird. There's a proper sequence to this, and then like he explained it in like the reverse way. He explained the divine tree first, and then told us about the Ten Tails bit. Especially when it's like, okay, the Otsutsuki always utilize the Ten Tails when they assault a planet. So, okay, the Ten Tails is a living creature because there is an Otsutsuki part of it. That's as far as we know. Now, I think in relation to everything else, what I think that confirms to us is that obviously that means that this new Ten Tails is obviously a chakra tree from like a different dimension. That obviously has a different Otsutsuki as part of it, because they confirm here it's not the same one that you battle. So it's not the Kaguya Ten Tails. So are they trying to tell us here that this Otsutsuki that we see with the horn is actually part of this tree? Or is it like Jigen's partner Otsutsuki is that way? Because it's sort of a thing that we know that the Otsutsuki sort of tend to travel in like pairs. There's like duos. So is that why like we didn't really know if stuff about like Kaguya's like partner, if she had one? Is that why, you know, Jigen here, like there's a kind of mystery around like if there is another one or not? Is it because the partner is part of the tree? But then, like I said, does that mean that then Kaguya, technically her Ten Tails was actually two Otsutsukis in one? I'm confused, because I think in all of this, it feels like, okay, so then what is the like original chakra tree? Like, what was the first time that this happened? Like this is ultimately, I think, at some point over the course of Boruto, leading to us getting a like, I think, origin of the Otsutsuki explanation, and we'll find out how they develop this ability to basically take power and like sort of genetic power from people. But anyway, we'll move on. Next page. Once they harvest the fruit, they no longer need the planet. They move on to another planet and repeat the same process. That's Otsutsuki for you. And Naruto says, you say a few things that bother me, but anyway, so it's Jigen who's trying to do this to our planet as we speak. And Sasuke says, no, I don't think so. And Naruto's like, huh? And it's like, it's whoever put karma on Jigen, I bet. So this is like, okay, we're finally getting to the core of this. The whole, what he said at the start. Jigen is an Otsutsuki now, but he wasn't initially. He was a human. And this is what Sasuke says. You said Jigen was originally an ordinary human. He became an Otsutsuki because of the karma rite. You're very perceptive, Uchiha Sasuke. You're on the right track. And Boruto, of course, watching this is like, what does this mean? So talk. What exactly is the karma? Yes, everything I've already said is just the preface. The important part starts now. Beep. He gets a beep from his glasses and he has to, stop the explanation. So this is one of those moments where it's just like, please, you were so close to getting the information that we need. But I think we basically know the idea, that it seems to be that it's this kind of special power the Otsutsukis have to be able to survive after the death of their body, is that they can basically like implant their spirit in another living being by basically putting that karma mark on them as they die, so that they basically, their spirit lives on in them and they can more or less take over. If they can gain control over that body, they basically are that person. So they're a sort of hybrid Otsutsuki, whatever, human or whatever. Again, I think we need the technical explanation about the full details, but I think we know the basic idea of the karma mark, but there's probably a lot more facets to it that we don't know about. So anyway, he says to Shikamaru, put my glasses on the edge of the table and aim it at the wall. So Shikamaru does this, and of course it beams a projection specifically of what the toad is looking at. So this is Kashin Koji's toad projecting this back to them. And so everyone gets to look in on the conversation between Jigen and Kashin Koji. You conspired with Amado to crash the airship in order to allow Kawaki to escape. And so this is where everyone realizes, him, Kashin Koji. Let me escape. Like, for Kawaki, this is like a huge thing of like, what? Why did he do that? And so this is when Amado says, Kashin Koji is my one and only collaborator within Kara. He is sharing what his scout toad is seeing in real time. So this is when Jigen says, I want you to know, Koji, I have no intention of reprimanding you for letting Kawaki escape. I want to know your motives, both yours and Amado's. For what gain do you rise up against me? That's what I'm interested in. I thought all of the inner collectively agreed on obtaining the chakra fruit. So what do you get from trying to destroy that plan? You pretend to be collected, but you aren't able to hide your ragged breath, is Kashin Koji's response. Jigen says, what? And this is when the attack comes in. So it's pretty brief here. Kashin Koji fires 4 shurikens at him. Jigen dodges. Jigen appears behind Kashin Koji, stabs him with 4 of those like chakra rod style things. And it seems like Kashin Koji's just been defeated. But of course he pops, revealing that it was a shadow clone. And of course you get the line from Jigen, how cheeky. And we end with the big reveal here. My motive is simple. I have no interest in the chakra fruit. From the very beginning, I was created to kill you. So they of course bold the line created and specifically to kill you. So Amado obviously gave Kashin Koji specific powers that will match up well against Jigen. But of course, we're still waiting to know what the sort of base human that Kashin Koji is. Is it Jiraiya theory? We'll see exactly how much value there is to that as we go on. But I get the impression that next month's chapter will likely almost have to reveal who Kashin Koji actually is, as well as what the karma mark is. So it's one of those chapters where I think there's a lot to discuss with it. I think some of it mainly just because of like technical details on the story, in that like we know probably more than they're actually explaining to us here. And so their sort of more simplified explanation almost creates more confusing parts to what's going on than anything. But like I said, it was needed. Like for anyone who's kind of maybe new to Naruto and is maybe just reading Boruto first, especially like younger readers, they probably very much needed an explanation like this to understand the meaning behind like what the Otsutsukis are doing. And like I said, I love the comparison of them to sort of like alien parasites. That really fits what they're about and really gives you a sort of different kind of view on them. But yeah, as much as there's all this explanation, it still begs the idea of like, what does he want to do with the chakra fruit? Because like this planet already has chakra, so is it just purely power? Like if he eats a chakra fruit, he'll be so powerful. But wouldn't he need a new body, a new vessel to really make use of that? Because we obviously have confirmation that the Jigen vessel for Ishiki is pretty much on the verge of collapse, which is why Kashin Koji is taking the advantage of that to fight him here. So that's the point here. Like we stop right at the point when the big explanation, that's what we were waiting for, is about to come out. Naruto asks, so that's what Jigen wants to do to our planet, as in he wants to plant that 10 tails in our planet and drain it. But actually Sasuke says no, that it's actually Ishiki who wants to do that. So again, like this begs the question of like, is it just power? Because the whole chakra fruit thing is interesting, but if it is fundamentally just to gain power, it's a little bit kind of like I want there to be more to it than that. And this is probably where it will link back into the main Otsutsuki clan, like the main, like what is their home planet, and are we kind of getting to sort of Naruto in space style stuff where we are going to eventually have to go to the dimension or planet where the Otsutsukis come from and really explore what they're about, what they're trying to accomplish on a grander scale. What specifically is Ishiki's goal in all of this? Because is it just to plant the divine tree again? I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of a difficult one to kind of really ponder. In that, like at the end, like Jigen says to Kashin Koji, I thought we all agreed on obtaining the chakra fruit, but he doesn't say what he wants to do with it. So it's an interesting one. It definitely leaves you a lot to sort of think about. I think it's probably the best thing to say about this chapter, and that's always a good thing, when a chapter leaves you really thinking about the universe and what we know and what we don't know. So yeah, in general, I'm pretty positive on this chapter outside of a few little things. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the chapter. What were your thoughts on the explanations? How far we progressed things? What were your favorite moments? And and especially some of the stuff I pointed out about, like, at least my understanding of the whole chakra fruit, 10 tails thing, and like how you link the information we know from other stuff in with this. Like, how do you interpret it? Definitely have that discussion in the comments. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.